For weeks, one question haunted the FBI's investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Who was the last person to look her in the eyes before she vanished? When the name was finally confirmed, it wasn't a stranger who wandered in from the desert. It wasn't a face from a cold case database. It was someone who had sat at her dinner table, someone who called her family. And when Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable faces in American news, found out why he had been staying silent, she didn't reach for her phone to dial 911. She did something far more calculated, far more permanent. What Savannah did next didn't just clear a name. It sent a message to everyone watching, the press, the public, and whoever is still out there, that the Guthrie family was done playing defense. Let's go back to the night everything changed. January 31st, 9:50 p.m. Tommaso Cioni pulls up to the house. Nancy gets out. He watches, and this detail matters. He watches the garage door close completely before he drives away. Not a man rushing, not a man running. A man making sure his wife's mother was safely inside. Then the garage door closes, and Nancy Guthrie disappears. Within 48 hours, the internet had already convicted him. Why isn't the husband talking? The 4-hour gap, what is he hiding? Silent husbands don't stay silent unless they have a reason. Now imagine being Savannah Guthrie. You are sitting in that Today Show chair, the one watched by millions of Americans every single morning, and you know that your sister's husband has become the #1 suspect in the court of public opinion. The cameras are on, the teleprompter is rolling, and somewhere across the country, someone is posting a thread about your family with 40,000 likes. What do you do with that? What do you do with the anger, the fear, the impossible position of being a journalist? Someone whose entire career is built on asking questions when the question everyone is asking is about someone you love. Savannah Guthrie did what she always does. She waited, she watched, and she prepared. At some point, and we may never know the exact hour, Savannah and her sister Annie sat down with Tommaso, not in front of cameras, not with lawyers in the room, just family, in the suffocating silence that only grief creates. The world had spent weeks constructing a villain, a cold, calculating man hiding behind silence and legal counsel, a husband with something to bury. But here is what Savannah saw when she looked across that table. She didn't see a man hiding. She saw a man who couldn't breathe from the weight of the loss. And then, quietly, in the way that only matters when it comes from law enforcement and not from the internet, the Pima County Sheriff's Office informed the family of something that changed everything. The man the public had labeled the silent husband, he was actually their best witness. Tommaso Cioni had provided investigators with a minute-by-minute account of that night, the kind of detailed, verifiable timeline that helped the FBI begin ruling out theories, including the possibility of a random attack. He wasn't silent because he was guilty. He was silent because he was told to be. Because when you are a witness in an active federal investigation, silence isn't a confession, it's cooperation. There is a version of this story where Savannah Guthrie stays in the background, releases a statement through a publicist, lets the investigators do their work, and keeps her personal life carefully walled off from her professional one. That is not what happened. When Savannah returned to that desk, something had shifted. The woman sitting there wasn't just a journalist processing grief on camera. She was a daughter, a sister, and she had made a decision. She was done watching her family be tried in the comment section. Her message, delivered not with volume, but with a kind of quiet certainty that is far more terrifying, was clear. If you think the silence was a sign of weakness, you haven't seen what happens when the Guthrie family fights back. And then she did something that, in the world of celebrity media, functions less like an emotion and more like a declaration. She put her arm around him, in public, on camera, for everyone to see. It told every tabloid, every true crime podcaster, every anonymous account with a theory that chapter was closed, and whoever came after Tommaso next would not just be coming after him, they'd be coming after her. When you eliminate the husband, you don't find peace, you find a much darker question. Because if Tommaso Cioni didn't do this, and investigators have made clear that he is not a suspect, then someone else was there that night, someone who knew the neighborhood, someone who knew the routine. Go back to what the cameras captured. A masked figure, moving with purpose, not panic, carrying what investigators identified as an Ozark Trail hiker pack, the kind you can buy at Walmart for $30, the kind that leaves no trace of who purchased it, and something else, a Wi-Fi jammer, a device that doesn't end up in your bag by accident, a device that tells you this was not a crime of opportunity, this was planned. And here is the thought that makes the Catalina foothills feel a little less like paradise and a little more like a stage. If someone was watching that neighborhood on the night of January 31st, they watched Tommaso pull up. They watched Nancy get out of the car. They watched the garage door close, and they waited for his taillights to disappear around the corner before they made their move. That is not a stranger. That is someone with patience, someone with information, someone who knew exactly how much time they had. $1.1 million. That is the reward currently on the table for information leading to the resolution of Nancy Guthrie's case. Not from a government agency, not from a network, from people who loved her, and from a public that refuses to let this go. Savannah Guthrie knows the truth now. She knows the man her sister married is not the monster the internet decided he was. She has looked him in the eyes. She has stood beside him publicly. She has made her position known. But knowing that Tommaso is innocent doesn't bring her mother home. It just means the person responsible is still out there, still watching, still waiting to see if this case goes cold. There is someone right now who knows something, a neighbor who noticed the car parked too long, a hiker who passed someone on the trail who didn't feel right, a person who heard something they've been trying to convince themselves meant nothing. $1.1 million says it means something. Savannah Guthrie is watching this case. Law enforcement is watching this case. And if you follow this story this far, so are you. What would you do if your silence was mistaken for guilt? Drop it in the comments. We are monitoring this case around the clock, and so is everyone who wants justice for Nancy Guthrie.